British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Hello, I'm Isabella Calisi, and this is your news update to 2 o'clock. Canada's Toronto Dominion, or TD Bank, has pleaded guilty for its lax practices that led to money laundering for multiple years. The U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland says employees of the bank openly joked about their enabling of criminal activity.
In one instance, a compliance employee asked a manager what, quote, the bad guys thought about the bank. The manager replied, quote, LOL, easy target.
TD has now has economic sanctions from U.S. authorities that limits its growth in the states, and it has to pay a fine of just over $3 billion. In local news, the BC Conservatives are standing by their candidate Brett Chapman, who called Palestinian children, quote, inbred time bombs, end quote, in a 2015 Facebook post. This is after the NDP leader David Eby brought up the Surrey South candidate's past comments, describing it as, quote, criminal hate speech. Conservative leader John Rustad says he and the party's 2 Muslim candidates have accepted an apology from Chapman.
There's no question that the statement that he made, those comments from 10 years ago, I found offensive, and I know many other people do. People sometimes make mistakes. However, I think what is important is actions. And so we'll see. Brent has already reached out, like I say, to the candidates, to the people on our team, and apologized. They've accepted that apology, as I have accepted that apology.
And BC has recorded its lowest decrease in rent amounts since October 2021. A report from rentals.ca and Urban Nation says BC has had a 2% rent price drop last month, making the average rent in the city $2,570. Urban Nation President Sean Hildebrand says the Canada-wide decline is due to foreign student enrollments dropping rapidly from the record high. And urban beekeeping is getting very popular in Canada year after year. Our reporter Vivek Nakra has more on how residents can be respectful to those around them when they beekeep.
The beekeeping has been practiced in British Columbia for over 150 years. According to the BC government, beekeepers must be aware that colonies can be a nuisance to nearby residents and may involve medical and legal issues. Laurie Hughes, president of Richmond Beekeepers Association, explains what people should do before starting beekeeping.
It really requires initial investment, but it also requires some responsibility. So anybody that goes into urban beekeeping must become a little bit knowledgeable, maybe taking a course or 2 on beekeeping. Joining a club is helpful.
Hughes says that they encourage people to plant things that are helpful for pollinators to make a link between beekeeping and the gardening community. Vivek Nakra, BCIT's The Crow.
And in federal news, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he supports mandatory drug treatment for kids and prisoners. In a news conference today, Poilievre revealed he's still researching how this kind of treatment would work for adults.
I believe for children and for prisoners who are behind bars, there should be mandatory drug treatment when they are found to be incapable of making decisions for themselves.
Earlier this summer, the Conservative head said he was open to the idea of mandatory treatment, but needed to study the issue more closely. And over in the States, Canadian meteorologist says that it's possible for extreme weather to arise in the wake of Hurricane Milton's destruction, and that any Canadians that are still in Florida need to, quote, take these storms seriously. And getting into local weather, today is mostly sunny with a little bit of cloud hanging over. The high is a warm 15 and the low will be a chilly 7. And that's your news update to 2 o'clock. I'm Isabella Calisi, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zach Arabko, and here are your sports updates to 2:10 p.m. Vancouver Canucks general manager Patrick Allvin announced Arshdeep Bains has been called up to the club. The 23-year-old forward was the final forward cut at training camp. The Bains call-up comes after the Canucks lost their opening game of the season to the Calgary Flames. The American Hockey League has mandated neck protection for its players this year. Canucks fans may have noticed players like Connor Garland wearing a neck guard in 2024. Protective neck guards have become a topic of discussion after former NHLer Adam Johnson died after a skate cut his neck during a game in England. The AHL is the top developmental league for the NHL. Like helmets and helmet visors, the NHL Players Union and league brass will negotiate possible future implementation. The city of Delta is proceeding with an expansion project at Winskill Park in Tawasin that will add a fourth baseball diamond. Our reporter Keenan Tregaskis has details on how this impacts athletics at Winskill.
With Tawasin Baseball and Mixed Slow Pitch benefiting from the redesign, Winskill's disc golf group are losing their course. The layout of the diamonds forces the city to remove and replant the forest at the back of the park that is home to the disc golf course. Lucas Neretter, the president of the Tawasin Amateur Baseball Association, gives his support to the disc golf community as they search for a new location.
We will support them because we are an amateur sport association. We want to see sports in general pushed forward in the community, so we will support them in their pursuit for a new space as long as it falls within reason.
The city is working with the disc golf community to find a new location. Project preparations are set to begin soon. Keenan Tregaskis, BCIT's The Crow.
Staying on the diamond, the Detroit Tigers and New York Yankees have a chance to punch their tickets to the American League Championship Series tonight. Up first, the Tigers face the Cleveland Guardians at 3:08. Tanner Bybee takes the mound for the Guardians against Reese Olson of the Tigers. Then the Yankees play the Kansas City Royals at 5:08. Yankees ace Garrett Cole takes the mound against Royals pitcher Michael Wacha. In NFL news, a second New York Jets coaching shuffle has happened. Offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett has been demoted 2 days after the dismissal of head coach Robert Saleh. Interim coach Jeff Ulbrich named quarterback coach Todd Downing as the new offensive play caller. Ulbrich says getting a fresh take on the offense can rejuvenate it.
It was obviously not necessarily a shock, but we all are familiar with the relationship he has with Nathaniel, and they're very, very good friends that go back a long way. So he understood the decision, and he was supportive of the decision.
New England Patriots safety Jabril Peppers has been placed on the special exempt list following his arrest over the weekend. Associated Press reporter Gethin Kulbach has more.
The Patriots say safety Jabril Peppers has been placed on the commissioner's exempt list while he goes through the legal process following his arrest on charges that he shoved his girlfriend's head into the wall and choked her. Patriots coach Gerard Mayo said Wednesday that Peppers will not be with the team in the near term. The 29-year-old Peppers pleaded not guilty on Monday in Quincy District Court on charges of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and possession of a Class B substance believed to be cocaine. He is scheduled back in court on November 22nd. I'm Gethin Kulbach.
The San Francisco 49ers head to Seattle to take on the Seahawks in tonight's Thursday night football matchup. Both teams enter the game coming off of a loss. The 49ers are 2-3 after narrowly losing 24-23 to the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks have lost back-to-back games against the Detroit Lions and New York Jets. They are 3-2. Kickoff is at 5:15. And the WNBA final begins tonight between the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. The Lynx are playing for their first championship since 2017. The Liberty, however, are looking for their franchise's first championship despite 5 previous finals appearances. New York defeated the Las Vegas Aces, who had won the past 2 championships. Tip-off is at 5. And tennis legend Rafa Nadal announced he will retire from the sport after the Davis Cup next month. The 22-time Grand Slam champion is retiring at 38 due to injuries. Thank you all for listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Welcome to For the Record. My name is Keenan Tregaskis, and today we are talking about the Winskill redesign project in Tsawwassen. The president of the Tsawwassen Amateur Baseball Association, Lucas Neretter, and TABA representatives have advocated for the redesign to reflect the needs of Tsawwassen baseball and the slow pitch groups. According to a statement made by the Tsawwassen Baseball, that number is over 3,000. Today's guest is Lucas Neretter, who has been president of TABA since last September. Thank you for joining me today, Lucas.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So what was your role in this process as a TABA president?
As a president of TABA, obviously I've been mandated to look out for youth baseball and BC minor baseball in the community of Tsawwassen. So my mandate is to look out for the present and future growth of baseball. So my role in the Winskill development was to represent the Tsawwassen Amateur Baseball Association in what we felt on the executive as a priority for the government of Delta to provide more facilities for diamond sports as a whole.
So I know this process began in April. From the baseball side of things, how can you talk about the development of that since April?
Well, the initial development in April was that the Corporation of Delta, or City of Delta, was going to proceed with a renewal of the Winskill pool. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of discussion about the fields, but due to preliminary plans and discussions through field allocations and different conversations through the city, it was made apparent that if they were going to keep the pool open while they constructed the new one, there was going to be some impacts to our fields. So it seemed like a good opportunity for us to start the conversation then about future kind of overall plans of the field as a whole.
Can you say anything about the city's initial reaction to you beginning that conversation?
The city was aware of our request for more field time. It's something that our group has advocated prior to myself even being the president. We, due to a large amount of adult slow pitch happening in Tsawwassen, over 16 teams in that group, and they accrue the field time usage from mid-June through the end of August. It impacts our competitive season in the summer. So there's been a lot of requests prior with the city about getting additional fields. So they weren't surprised that we were asking for the opportunity to look at the field redevelopment as a whole.
So you mentioned the slow pitch there. On the Tsawwassen Baseball Facebook, it says you're going to spend this offseason working alongside them to figure out a field plan use. How has that gone so far?
I mean, we're still up it's still up for debate as to when the new fields are going to be available to us, or what fields we may end up losing this upcoming season for the short term. So the discussions are still fairly preliminary with them. The hope is that with the additional field space at Winskill, once completed, we will be able to move the majority of our age groups to the Winskill facilities and free up additional space for the slow pitch group to be playing on, i.e. Pebble Hill, Denison Park, among others.
So back on the extra fields, in the first proposal, the city planned to move the baseball fields and rearrange them so that they're facing each other without adding an extra field. The next proposal that was released had the extra field and they were facing away from each other. How was that accomplished?
That was through, obviously being a baseball background, the pinwheel design in baseball is much more beneficial for safety and also for player and spectator, let's say, I don't want to say usage, but enjoyability, which is probably not a word, but that's okay. The initial design, to be honest, it lacked the required kind of growth that would have been needed. having fences hit into each other creates quite a safety concern when you have two outfield fences facing each other. So in that respect, we had made the request to try to get the backstops backing onto each other. Just to clarify, though, in the initial proposal, I believe back in June, there was a allowance for a fourth diamond. It was shown on there. It just was put that for a future fourth field.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I do have to agree with you, coming from a baseball background myself, it can be a bit of a safety hazard having those fields faced towards each other. Were there any concerns that council would go through with the plan of having the fields facing each other?
Yeah, I mean, that was the main reason that we started to kind of increase our pressure on the city. Was that it looked like the initial vote, which, at the end of the day, the process was done well and thorough, but in the initial proposal that was to be put to council for a vote in a short period of time, it did look like that it was going to go through with that initial field layout, which would have not really benefited any user group, disc golf included.
So obviously you did mention the disc golf community there. For the viewers, I want to preface that I reached out to the disc golf community and was unable to get through to them. But what work have you guys done to find a middle ground with that community?
It has been challenging, due mostly in part, again, that my mandate as president of TABA is to look out for the benefit of baseball in the community. So that being mandate one, the tough part in trying to coordinate or work with disc golf was that the initial proposal of the 3 fields with the future fourth still showed more than half the tree canopy being removed, which would result in the removal of disc golf from that area regardless. So the initial conversations with disc golf were very tough because the focus for them at that time was to try to eliminate moving that field into their space altogether. Since it's been apparent that we will be moving forward with a fourth field and a complete redevelopment with tree removal, we've been working as much as we can with disc golf to help support them to get a space that they deserve within the Tsawwassen community.
So I'm under the influence that you're trying to move them to a new location. How has that gone so far, if that is the case?
Baseball Association in general is not trying to move anybody.
Yes, sorry, I did mean the council.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how that process is going. I know they've been offered a few different locations. I'm not sure if they are all on board with which one is best, but there has been 3 locations provided to them to review, and I believe they've brought up a 4th that they are asking council to consider. That being said, we will support them because we are a amateur sport association. We want to see sports in general push forward in the community, so we will support them in their pursuit for a new space as long as it falls within reason.
So I also know the current proposal shows a potential soccer field being between 2 of the diamonds. Has the South Delta Soccer talked about how this impacts them?
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane.